Hi everyone, I'm Olivia. Let's talk books. Today we're doing an absolutely massive book haul. I think I'm talking about 35 books in total. Some of these I purchased myself. Most of them were kindly gifted to me by publishers. When I was in New York City to celebrate the National Book Awards, a group of us were invited to tour Penguin Random House. We were invited by KDPG, which is the Knopf Doubleday publishing group. They're an imprint of Penguin Random House that publishes Knopf, Doubleday, Pantheon, Vintage, and Everyman's library books. In earnest, I'm a big reader and lover of the books that they publish. Some of my favorite books have been published by them, like Hamnet and Martyr. Now I have friends who work there, and they're the ones who came up with the idea to invite a bunch of creators to go see the offices. So when we were at Penguin Random House, not only did we see the KDPG floor, we also saw the audiobook floor. As a big audiobook reader, I thought it was just super cool to go behind the scenes to see how audiobooks are made and just to learn more about the marketing and publishing process. I've already published a short of the entire tour, as well as a vlog of my entire New York City trip, which I'll link down below. But when we walked into the meeting room, there was this conference table just lined with books. There was a stack of new releases that everybody was going to go home with, and then there were more books just displayed on the table. They said take as much as you want, and I definitely took advantage of that. I did also make the joke that it reminded me of the scene in Crazy Rich Asians when the bride gifts all of her friends on her bachelorette party an unlimited shopping spree, but they only had 60 seconds, and so they were all grabbing and clawing at each other. Our time in the office was much more civil than that, and nobody was fighting over any of the books, but our internal reaction was like that of the girls freaking out about the shopping trip. And they did mail everything back to us, which I greatly appreciated because my luggage would not have been able to bring everything home with me. I do still have the box because I have no idea where I'm going to put any of these books. Honestly, I'm contemplating getting a new bookshelf because when I do request books from publishers, I like to be intentional and only ask for ones that I know I'm going to read. I think that is what eases my conscience a little bit for taking so many books, but I've been part of the KDPG marketing influencer email for 2 years. Whether it's this publisher or a different one, you don't get sent every copy that you request. So some of these books are ones that I had previously requested but didn't get the opportunity to receive them. I always say better late than never, so I'm super glad to have them now. I do have everything categorized in a few different ways. We'll go through the books that I've purchased recently, including other knickknacks from my New York City trip. I'll do books from publishers that are not in KDPG, and then from KDPG, I'll do the advanced copies that are coming out next year, everything that was on their front list this year, and then the backlisted titles that I took as well. And it is going to be a little bit confusing because within this imprinting group, Knopf, Doubleday, and Pantheon publish normally as frontlist hardcovers, but when they get turned into paperback, they're then published under Vintage. So when you see anything that's been published by Vintage, 99.9% of the time, it was published by Knopf, Doubleday, or Pantheon previously. So for example, on the spine for Martyr, it says Vintage, but I know that this was published by Knopf first. And that's also why you'll see the paperback and the hardcover have different logos on the bottom of their spines. I previously purchased a hardcover copy of Martyr, but gave that one to my sister, which is why I can't show the comparison right now. And actually this paperback copy was gifted to me. But let's get into the books. If you see any that you've read before, drop a comment and let me know what you thought of it. First, we have everything I purchased and what I got from New York City. Before I went to New York, my Aardvark book club pick, which I am not sponsored by, I genuinely subscribe, was Thirst Trap by Grania O'Hare. This is a messy millennial book about a group of 20-somethings in Ireland. I love Irish authors, and I haven't really picked up a lot of contemporary Irish fiction this year. It was my November selection, but I'll be reading it in December. I also picked up the new 2025 release of Frankenstein, a classic that I finally got a chance to read. I loved it. I genuinely am so obsessed with this cover. It's beautiful, and I do think they're doing a reprint of it because a lot of people have complained about the Netflix logo being on it. I have a hot take. I actually don't mind certain logos being on book covers. I will say I don't love streaming platforms being on the cover, especially because it's not a tie-in adaptation cover. So it's a little annoying that I bought it with the logo, but oh well, what can you do? And then everything I purchased from New York, the bulk of it was from the Strand, and then I got a few little tchotchkes from Books Are Magic. First, I got the iconic Strand tote bag. I do not need more tote bags, but I did need this one. I got 2 little board books for my kids. This is Little Elliot Big City and Baby C's New York City. These books are a little bit of a younger demographic for my kids. I don't really know if and when kids age out of board books, but I just wanted something simple for them. For my husband, I got him a puzzle of the subway map. We're both super fascinated by the subway, so I thought it would be perfect for us to build it, hodgepodge it, and then hang it up for decor. I'm not someone who wants to build a puzzle and then put it back into the box. I definitely want to turn them into artwork. And now we can do that for the subway map. The Strand is also known for doing blind dates with a book. I personally think they should be rebranded to mystery dates with a book, but I digress. So I picked up one that said A Tale of Corporate Greed and Environmental Ruin, which turned out to be How Beautiful We Were by Mbolo and Mbui. It was published a few years ago. Yep, it was published in 2021 with the paperback coming out in 2022. I haven't heard many people talk about it, so I'm really excited to get to it. I'll probably read this in the first half of 2026. I also got one of their magnetic bookmarks because I have been in desperate need of more of them. It just says New Yorker on it, which I really like because I subscribe to The New Yorker, but I don't think this one has anything to do with the magazine itself. I think it's just New Yorker in general. I picked up some of their free bookmarks, and that's everything I got from the Strand. Just kidding, I also got a sticker. I'm gonna put that sticker on my reading journal, as well as these stickers from Books Are Magic. I got 2 of them, and they're the only thing that I purchased from there, just because I was absolutely out of room in my suitcase. I also got some of their free bookmarks, and I went to the second Books Are Magic location on Montague, and they have this little unique print vending machine. I decided to get one. My print was the cute little Cento can of San Marzano tomatoes, which is actually really funny and kind of like an inside joke between me and my husband. Not for the brand itself, but for San Marzano tomatoes. So I thought that was cute. I was hoping that I would get like more of a unique one for Brooklyn, but I love it all the same. I did actually also get this mini composition book because even though I knew I couldn't bring home a full-size novel, I could bring home a little pocket notebook. Not really sure what I'm gonna do with this yet, but we'll find out. I know I can come up with something for a notebook. I'm a big list maker, so we'll see. Now we're moving on to other books that were gifted to me that are not from KDPG. First, I have The Fire by Cecilia Sala. The subtitle is Voices of a Generation in Iran, Ukraine, and Afghanistan. It's translated from the Italian by Una Stronsky. This was sent to me by Europa, but it's a nonfiction collection about different regions and countries as their younger generations are fighting for change against oppressive governments and regimes. It sounds so up my alley. I'm really sad I didn't get to it in Nonfiction November, but I'm still super excited for it. I do have 2 digital advanced copies. The first is Vigil by George Saunders. It comes out at the end of January from Random House. I read his Booker Prize winning Lincoln in the Bardo over the summer and absolutely loved it. I started Vigil on the subway in New York. I should be finishing it in December. I absolutely love Saunders' writing, and this explores similar themes in Lincoln in the Bardo of being in an afterlife setting. And if you saw my New York City vlog, then you've already heard about how I actually got the chance to meet him at the National Book Awards after party. He truly is so nice. And then my other advanced digital copy is for Canon by Paige Lewis, who is the spouse of Kaveh Akbar. This is being published by Viking and comes out in May. This sounds like an experimental epic that plays with form. They're also originally a poet, and I love novels by poets. Probably read it in like March or April. I also really hope that they're nominated for the National Book Awards with this book. Again, I haven't read it, but I kind of already have that feeling that this is going to be a debut darling next year. These next 2 books weren't sent to me, but they were gifted by the National Book Foundation at the National Book Awards after party. On the tables for the dinner and ceremony, they build part of the centerpieces with stacks of books of the long listed titles. They just end up being first come, first serve after the people who attended the ceremony have already chosen which ones they wanted. I actually didn't even pick these up until the after party was over and we were on our way out. Someone mentioned that there were still books available, and so these are the ones that I picked up. So thank you to the National Book Foundation. The first one is The Salt Stones, Seasons of a Shepherd's Life by Helen Wybrow. This was on the nonfiction long list and was actually one of the titles that I was really excited for. It's a very quiet memoir about nature as the author and her partner restore this old farm in Vermont. It seems like just like a very reflective book on nature, which is absolutely up my alley. And it's published by Milkweed Editions, which also published Braiding Sweetgrass, which is a very beloved book and one of my favorites that I read this year. I plan on getting to this in December. Then I picked up The Remembered Soldier by Anyet Danya. This is translated from the Dutch by David McKay. I was very ambitious with taking this one because I knew it would have to travel home with me. If there's a will, there's a way, and I made it work. This is an absolutely chunky novel, but I've been hearing incredible things about it, and this did make the translated literature shortlist. But this is a book about war and memory and a woman reuniting with her husband after he's been injured in the war. And this wife is trying to piece together the biography of her husband, but then it wonders if she's telling the truth. Some of my goals for 2026 include getting more comfortable reading chunky novels and reading more translated literature. So this fits both of those criteria. Another book I'm hoping to read in the first half of 2026. I've heard nothing but great things. Now we have all of the KDPG books that were gifted to every single one of us. Most of these are advanced copies, but I did forget that some of them are actually classics. They're celebrating publishing anniversaries, so they're being reprinted with new covers. And those books are The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I read it earlier this year and really enjoyed it. Sula by Toni Morrison, which I haven't read yet but plan to in 2026. And then Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I was actually going to be on the campaign for the reprint because it was also done in conjunction with their new audiobook recording, but I think I just forgot to respond to the email. So I'm really glad that they sent us home with copies of this because now I'll definitely get to it. And a note on the Toni Morrison covers, Vintage is actually publishing all of her major works with these new covers. It's a really beautiful collection, and I'm really glad we were able to get 2 of them. I do have a paperback version of the original cover of The Bluest Eye. Now I'm going to put it in a little free library so it can find a new home. Now we're going to the new books publishing in 2026. Before I get to the ones that they gifted all of us, at the end of our time in the offices, a smaller group of us was just hanging out in the conference room. One of the other marketers came in and chatted with us a little bit, and she was talking about this book and happened to have a few extra advanced copies, so some of us were able to come home with them. But this is Nerve Damage. I don't know if it's Anna Kira or Anna Chiara, or if I'm just mispronouncing her name altogether. Stinson. It's a contemporary literary fiction novel where the main character thinks that she sees her toxic ex-boyfriend at a bar and then spirals from there. It explores what it's like to go down a paranoid rabbit hole. It very much feels like a book for people who make up scenarios in their heads, where it starts to blur the lines of reality. It's on sale May 12th, and it's published by Knopf. Now we're on to the ones that were gifted to everybody. In the beginning of February, Fear and Fury, the Reagan 80s, the Bernie Gates shooting, and the rebirth of White Rage is coming out by Heather Ann Thompson, another doorstopper of a book. This covers an inciting incident where a white man killed 4 black teenage boys on the subway and the fallout and political implications of that inciting event. And it also says that it deftly recovers the lives of the boys who too many decided didn't matter. Fear and Fury is the remarkable account of these pivotal events and a searing indictment of a crucial turning point in American history. It sounds great, and I love that it's about the intersectionality of race, history, American politics, and New York City. And this is being published by Pantheon, and the author is actually a Pulitzer Prize winner. Then we have Kin by T.R.E. Jones. This is coming out March 10th and is published by Knopf. This cover is absolutely stunning. This is about 2 young girls in Louisiana who are childhood friends who grew up without mothers. We follow them as they grow up and go on to live completely different lives, one with and one without privilege. A novel about mothers and daughters, friendship and sisterhood, and the complexities of being a woman in the American South. Kin is an exuberant, emotionally rich, unforgettable work from one of the brightest and most irresistible voices in contemporary fiction. I really hope this is nominated for the 2026 National Book Awards. And then we have 2 books publishing June 9th. We have Cat Love by Thomas Q. Maureen? I don't know. This is being published by Pantheon, and this is actually like the advanced cover. They printed these arcs just for us, and the final cover art had yet to be announced. It has since been revealed, and I love it. There's a blurb on the back from the Freelance Star that reads, "A contemporary dystopian elegy narrated by a cat in a Schrodinger's box by the prize-winning poet and memoirist whose writing cuts to the core with electrifying force." I think this is going to be a short novel that takes us in many different directions. I love a book that plays with form and is bold and isn't afraid to take risks. In full controversy, I'm not really an animal person, so I don't really know what I'm gonna think of a cat being the narrator, but you know what the hell, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief, because I do think the essence of this book is gonna be right up my alley. Also coming out in June, but being published by Doubleday, is Villa Coco by Andrew Sean Greer. He's the Pulitzer Prize winning author of Less, but this book follows a young archivist who goes to Italy to document this grand villa of this lady named Coco, who had like a very exciting and exuberant life. It also sounds like there's like a collection of quests he has to go on, told with signature wit, charm, and humanity that made Less an international phenomenon. Villa Coco is a dazzling, sun-soaked ode to life itself, a meditation on how seriously we ought to take ourselves, and a bawdy Mediterranean ballad about becoming who you've always wanted to be. It genuinely sounds like it's going to be the book of the summer. Arguably the biggest title in this stack, which is kind of weird to say because it's already filled with prize nominees and winners. We did get an advanced copy of Colson Whitehead's new novel, Cool Machine, coming out in July, and this is published by Doubleday. But this is an exuberantly entertaining novel that brings to life 1980s New York in the magnificent final volume of his Harlem trilogy. The other 2 books in the trilogy are first Harlem Shuffle and then Crook Manifesto. Also, as a note, those aren't his Pulitzer books. His Pulitzer books are the Underground Railroad and the Nickel Boys. I actually read the Nickel Boys this year, and I grabbed a copy of the Underground Railroad. Next year just might be my year of Colson Whitehead, which I'm not complaining, he's an excellent writer. With his usual pitch-perfect prose, Whitehead paints a portrait of a city in transition where shimmering skyscrapers rise to the heavens as displaced people huddle in abandoned tunnels below. In a dazzling display of protean imagination, Cool Machine roves all over the city, from the windows of the world to Sugar Hill, to show in New York and in the lives of Whitehead's vivid characters, it's what's below the surface that reveals the truth. And then on the back, it shows that the book is going to be divided into 3 different years, 1981, 1983, 1986. So I'm really excited to see where it takes us. I'm glad it comes out in July, so I have time to catch up on the trilogy. If Cat Love is the pre-arc, this is the pre-arc. When we got these, it very much reminded me of the The Devil Wears Prada, when Anne Hathaway's character magically procures unpublished manuscripts for Meryl Streep's daughters. But this is Party with Cassowary by Leonard San Pietro, translated from the Italian by Todd Portnowitz. This is going to be published by Knopf, but I have no idea when it's going to be released. It just says 2026 on the cover. It's also pretty short. It's clocking in at 127 pages in like a big double-spaced format, so I don't really know how it's going to translate once it's bound. I've actually started it and I'm really enjoying it, but it's about a group of 20-somethings who get together at a friend's house for a party. The people at the party don't know each other, but they all have a mutual friend in common, but their mutual friend has yet to arrive to the party. They then get a mysterious note that says that friend is going to die unless someone touches the cassowary by 1 a.m. And a cassowary is a big ostrich-like bird. We get like a synopsis in the beginning. At the end it says, Party with Cassowary captures the precarity of early adulthood with piercing wit and a generous heart. I do just enjoy reading about the messiness that comes with being in your early 20s. I'm probably gonna finish it in the week between Christmas and New Year's. I cut off my annual reading at Christmas. I don't really get any productive reading time done after Christmas in general. This might be the book that I pick up on and off, especially because it's pretty short. This will just count towards my 2026 stats once more publishing information is out. Even though this is being published by a big 5 publisher, it definitely has the feel of being an indie translated darling. I already feel like I'm gonna be a big champion of this book. I'm curious to keep reading and see where it goes. Now we're onto the frontlist and backlist books that were displayed out on the table. All of these are already published, so I'm gonna go through them pretty quickly. First, we're gonna do this frontlist pile. When Cranes Fly South by Lisa Ridzane is translated, which is translated from the Swedish by Alice Menzies. Remember how earlier I said that Vintage publishes the paperback of Knopf, Doubleday, and Pantheon books? This is the 1% that does not apply to that. This English publication is a Vintage original. This is also another animal book. This is about an elderly man at the end of his life. He's clinging on to the relationship and companionship of his dog while also navigating a rocky relationship with his son. I love books that reflect on the end of life, so I'm really curious to see what this is. Then we have Raising Hair by Chloe Dalton. I first heard about it earlier this year because it was nominated for the Women's Prize for Nonfiction. This was published in America by Pantheon, and it's actually blurbed by Angelina Jolie. I always find it interesting when random celebrities blurb books that you don't necessarily think that they would even be reading or like, but she approves it. This is another book I'm hoping to finish by the end of the year. It's about a woman who during the pandemic starts to take care of this rabbit in her backyard, and by taking care of this rabbit, she uses it as a way to reflect on her life and the world around her. Another book about reflecting with nature. It sounds like it's going to be in good companionship with the Saltstones. I'm pretty sure this is going to be either like a 4.5 or 5-star book from me. We have 2 books on the Middle East, one from Pantheon, one from Knopf. Both of these were on the National Book Awards fiction long list. One Day actually went on to be shortlisted and win, so I'm really glad that I took a copy of this. And backtracking a little bit as to why we went to the Penguin Random House offices, it was to celebrate the books that were nominated for the National Book Awards, published by KDPG. I read both of these in November for Nonfiction November. Both of these were 5 stars, absolutely excellent. For the Sun After Long Nights documents the women life freedom movement in Iran. One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El-Akkad documents his life emigrating from Egypt to America, while also balancing the violence that we've seen through our phones for the past 2 years of the ongoing genocide in Palestine. It's heartbreaking, tender, beautifully written. Everyone needs to read this. And then we have an advanced copy of a book that's already published. When you walk around the offices, there are some bookshelves of extra arcs or finished copies anyone can grab. I went back and forth between requesting a copy of Bad Bad Girl from our marketing email group. At the time, I thought I had too many books on my physical TBR and I didn't really want to add another, which is so moot in hindsight because I have so many books that I need to read now. My physical TBR is like an absolute mess. But this is a blend of fiction and nonfiction, and I don't really like autofiction, but that doesn't feel unappealing with this book because it leans right into it and doesn't try to be something it isn't. I think a lot of autofiction tries to be clever or funny or sly, and this is just right on the nose with it. It feels like it's going to be just a more robust and intimate story, a novel about a rebellious mother and a rebellious daughter jousting across decades of curiosity and ambition, elation and disappointment, intimacy and misunderstanding. And this is about Gish and her mother, not Gish and her daughter. I actually don't even know if she has kids. Throughout the reading process, I'm going to be curious to see why this was labeled as a novel rather than creative nonfiction. We are now in the last section, which are backlist books, as well as the merch that we were given. Glyph by Ali Smith came out in 2024 by Pantheon, and its sequel, also named Glyph, is coming out this year. I haven't read Ali Smith before, and she's best known for her seasonal quartet, but this is genre bending and I think dystopian. I want to go into this book not knowing much of anything. I think that's going to be a more satisfying payoff. I'm hoping to read this in December. Then we have Kafka's The Metamorphosis and Other Stories. This is published by Schocken, which is under Pantheon. I've actually never read any of Kafka's America's work, and that's something I really want to rectify in the new year with reading more classic work. I think I have read a story or two when I was in high school, but just don't remember it. So I'm excited to get to this. Published by Pantheon, we have The Complete Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. This is a book I've already read and loved. It's essential to the Iranian literary canon. It's one of those books that I just put off buying. So when I saw it, I had to grab it. I really recommend that everybody reads this. And she also has a graphic novel about the women life freedom movement, which would be a great companion with For the Sun After Long Nights. The rest of the books I'm talking about are all published by Vintage. Never Whistle at Night is a horror indigenous anthology. I'm not a horror reader, but I have heard incredible things about it, and it does remind me of the novel And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott, which I read last year, which is also indigenous horror adjacent. This also fits in that 1% of being published as a Vintage original, but it came out in 2023. Then we have Nightcrawling by Layla Motley, which was originally published by Knopf in 2022. This has been sitting on my TBR of shame for quite some time. It tackles a pretty tough subject matter where this young Black girl ventures into sex work to provide for her younger brother, and then it also involves a scandal with the Oakland police. It's a powerful book I've never heard a bad thing about, and next year I am definitely getting to it. Then we have Plastic by Scott Guild, which was originally published last year in 2024 by Pantheon. I'm not really sure why I didn't request a copy of this on the marketing emails, but I'm glad to finally have it now. It's about these plastic figures navigating their relationship in like this pre-apocalyptic world. It says Erin is a plastic girl living in a plastic world. Then she meets Jacob, a blind figurine with whom she feels an instant connection. Scott Guild's debut novel is a beautiful and fabulously inventive look at the hollow core of American society and a guide to how we might reanimate all of its broken plastic pieces. It actually really reminds me of Annie Bot by Sierra Greer, which I read last year and really enjoyed. I could see myself picking this up at the end of spring, like maybe May or June, towards the end of the spring literary award season, so I can have this dystopian be a palate cleanser. I really just also love this cover. And then we have The Road by Cormac McCarthy, another classic and literary giant. I actually thought that this would be a book that my husband would really enjoy. We have like a loose mini book club between us where we try to read one book a month together, so I thought that this would be a perfect fit for us for next year. Then we have This House of Grief by Helen Garner. This came out in Australia in 2014. She's an Australian literary icon. And then it was published in 2023 by Pantheon. And then last year, the paperback came out by Vintage. This is nonfiction, and it actually was one of Dua Lipa's book club picks this year, which is why I wanted to make sure I grabbed a copy. I'm actually a big convert to Dua Lipa's book club. I'll talk more about that in my reading intentions for 2026. This is a true crime story that follows the case of this man who, when driving with his 3 sons, off-roaded into a dam, and his 3 sons drowned, but he lived. And this follows the court case after the inciting incident. I think this is going to be a good balance of being interesting because it's a court procedural, while also being devastating because it explores the grief of losing these 3 boys. Then we have Snow by Orhan Pamuk, who won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2006. This is considered to be one of his masterpieces. When I saw it on the table, Matthew said that it was excellent. It sounded right up my alley. It's slow, meditative, and in the Middle East. Of all of the books that I've come home with, this is the one I know the least about, and I'm actually kind of excited about that. This was originally published by Knopf in 2004, so it just celebrated its 20th anniversary last year. The last book on this list is the classic The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. This won the Pulitzer and the National Book Award. I have a long-term reading goal of wanting to read all of the National Book Awards fiction winners. When I saw this on the table, I knew I had to grab it. Though we're done talking about books, I do have some goodies. When we did our tour of the audiobook floor, they gifted us their tote bag, and it has the cutie little penguin on the back. And in the bag, they gifted us 5 audiobooks, which includes the new recording of Hamnet by Jessie Buckley, who stars in the movie adaptation of Hamnet. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I also haven't seen the movie yet because I'm a little nervous that I'm going to be sobbing like a baby in the movie theater, and nobody wants to see that. I might have to tough it out because I'm hearing it's a really good adaptation. We also have 2 more tote bags, which brings my net total of tote bags from New York City to 4. I have no justification for that whatsoever, but here we are. This is an extra Cormac McCarthy tote from a PR campaign, and this was gifted to us by Pantheon that says, "Fight evil, read books." Finally, we got this pouch from Out of Print, and it's like a library checkout card. It is so cute. We have made it to the end. Thank you so much for sticking around. All of this makes me so excited for my reading year in 2026. I don't think my reading year in 2025 has been as intentional as I've wanted it to be, but I think that's going to change, and I could not be more excited. Again, thanks for hanging out with me, and as always, I'm Olivia. Happy reading. I'll see you next time.